Welcome to the Typical Sportsman podcast. I am so excited. I've got Mr. Scott Bakken, one of the owners of Dialed Archery on, and we talk about a lot of stuff. We talk about the changes that you're going to see from the Arxos to the Pruf, but we also just talk about innovation as a whole. As an industry, there's a need for innovation, but yet when innovation comes, it's scrutinized and put down. We talk about all that. We talk about, the pioneers of our industry who really were ahead of their time in innovation and change. We talk about Pope & Young and the importance of supporting organizations. Scott is one of our board members at Pope & Young. It's a really good conversation, and ultimately, it's a conversation that will encourage you. It's a conversation that you will learn not only about the new products from Dial, but you'll learn about just the importance of supporting people in the industry and encouraging change and wanting to see people try to move the needle. And we talk about that. We talk about, whether a product falls flat on its face or not, it's still encouraging to see people wanting to change and innovate and try new things. Guys, this episode is brought to you by my friends over at ScentLock. Leaps and bounds, the best whitetail gear that you can possibly find. Everybody makes good camo. Everybody makes great clothing. But what really sets ScentLock apart as far as whitetail hunting goes is the activated carbon for maximum odor absorption. They have a full BE1 toolkit built for bow hunters by bow hunters. Every aspect of the gear was considered when they built that kit for bow hunters. So it is a phenomenal kit. If you haven't checked it out, I would highly encourage you to go over to Cabela's or Bass Pro, get your hands on it, feel it, try it. It's phenomenal gear. Guys, let's dive in with Mr. Scott and hear about Dialed Archery and the industry and the need for innovation.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
Guys, if you like to build arrows or work on your bows at home, you have to know about a little website called papertuner.com. I have a little studio here, a little space here where I work on all my bows, and big paper tuners just used to take up all the space. You couldn't hang them anywhere nice and neat. They took up a lot of floor space. And then I come across papertuner.com. What you get from papertuner.com is an all-in-one solution to paper tune your bows. They come with all the magnetic strings, all the clips you need. You can hang it up in a matter of seconds, take it down in a matter of seconds, hang it on the wall. It is a phenomenal way to paper tune your bows. However, they also have incredible arrow spinners. They have arrow stands. If you don't have a place to hang your paper tuner, they even make tripod mounts so you can mount it on just a regular old tripod. Guys, papertuner.com is a phenomenal solution for little shops that just don't have a lot of space for a big old paper tuner. Guys, go check them out, papertuner.com. I promise you'll be glad you did. All right, Mr. Scott Bakken, man, the guy that has won the award for best hair in the industry 3 years in a row. What's up, man?
How's it going?
I can say that because, I'm not in the competition. So,
yeah.
How's life been, dude?
It's been busy, but good. Other than we're freezing our asses off here in Minnesota, but that's nothing too new. But no, yeah, I mean, it's just same old, just really busy and trying to figure out how to ship sites out faster.
Yeah.
So, but all good problems to have.
No, I think we're hitting negative 27 tomorrow here in Kansas. So that'll be fun.
That was, this morning when I woke up at like 4, the thermometer said it was minus 22, but the real feel was like minus 45.
God.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's brutal, but we've had that for like the last 2 weeks. So, it is what it is, but I feel bad for the wildlife. I mean, the deer and, we have a bunch of pheasants around here, and it's just like, man, like it's just brutal on them. And luckily we don't have a lot of snow. So, there's still plenty of food available for them, but yeah, it's pretty typical for us though. Like, you get into mid-February and just when you think you can get through winter without any sort of Arctic freeze or whatever. And then right about this time, it's like, oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
Like just as the days start to get longer and, you get excited because it's like past 5 o'clock and the sun's still up. You're like, all right, like spring is on the horizon. And then we get hit with this crap and you're like, why do we live here?
Yeah.
Like,
it seems like
we could live anywhere else. Why do we live here?
It seems like winter keeps getting later and later too. Like
it really does.
We didn't get cold at all until like December. I mean, all through November, early December, it was still like 60. And now but it keeps getting later and later, seems like.
I think we actually had more snow like end of October, beginning of November than we did through most of our winter, which has kind of been typical the last couple of years. So, for deer hunting, it's been great, getting into the first 2 weeks of November with a little bit of snow on the ground. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's just part of, having your 4 seasons. It's just when it gets that cold, it just mentally, it just takes its toll on you because, nothing works.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this morning, my truck just decided it didn't want to deal with the cold, so it didn't start. And like I said, everything just becomes more difficult. But I mean, at the same time, we're like, another 3 weeks and we're into March and, spring is on the horizon. So you just got to deal with it.
Now, I want to ask a question because we're in the heart of show season. Why doesn't Dialed do any shows, man? We don't see you around nowhere. And
yeah, we get asked that a lot. And it's not that we don't want to. And our initial plan this year was we actually did have quite a busy travel schedule for shows and everything. But when we got down to the timing, it's just being a small team, like one, just personnel wise, would we rather have our team back at the shop building sites and getting orders out, or would we rather have everybody out of the shop for a week at a trade show? And it's just, where do we want to dedicate our resources, right? And right now our time is more valuable here at the shop than it is out on the road. And, it's hard. It's a hard decision because we like getting out and like being in front of people. And, that's where like, I'm not a desk jockey. Like that's my job, is to sit behind a desk on a computer every day and make sure like business is running as usual. But I would much rather be out like talking to customers and teaching people about Dialed. But again, it's just when you look at time and resources, our time is just better spent home right now. And especially because, we've been running about a 3 to 4 week lead time since we launched Pruf in October, and now we're in mid-February, and those lead times are still in place. So I would rather spend our time and money, bettering processes and improving processes, so we could provide a better, end experience for customers. So, unfortunately this year we just had to make the tough decision to kind of pull out of a lot of the trade shows and just put our focus on getting orders, shipped out and getting caught up. So
now that's something a lot of people don't understand. And, maybe it's because Dialed came onto the scene so hot and heavy. I mean, basically took over the industry. A lot of people don't understand. You guys are a small team, which I appreciate about you guys. You guys aren't, a 40-person team. How does the infrastructure of Dialed look? Just so everybody knows.
Pretty much like a circus. No, it's, it's like we have sayings, at the shop, because it is pretty amazing what our output is, or what our productivity is with such a small team. That's one of the, and it's kind of a long-winded answer to a very simple answer. But, basically from the top down, we like internally and externally, we got about a dozen people underneath the Dialed, infrastructure. And on the assembly side, that fluctuates, but, we are a small team, but again, the amount of work we can get done with the size of our team is actually pretty impressive. And again, a lot of that just goes back to like kind of how we design our products. And, if you look at the Pruf, one of the main design concepts of that site was to make it very simplistic. So, it doesn't take us a very big team to build sites. And so like when I talk about like 3 to 4 week lead times, that's not necessarily because we're short on personnel. It means we just, we have a backlog of parts that, we're either waiting to come in or we're waiting to get done with Cerakote. But like once we have the finished, components, we can knock out quite a few sites with a small team. So we don't necessarily need like a 40-man team, like you said, but, could we use a few more people? 100%. But, we talk about it week after week, Taylor and I, and it's like, we don't ever want to be like knee jerk reactive, like make decisions because, it's a quick decision. Like we like to analyze and think about everything. So it's like, if we're going to go hire 3 or 4 more people, okay, then what is that going to yield us in productivity, but also in revenue? Because you got to pay for those people, right? And that's one thing we're very proud of is like, we do pay our people very well. And, one thing I think a lot of companies get, and I've been guilty of this is, when you look at the different layers of a business, you have what you call like, your C-suite, your executives, and then it kind of trickles down from there. Well, at Dialed, I mean, even though like Taylor and I are the owners, everybody's on the same level, right? There are no like layers. So like we treat our assembly and our production team like they were a executive level position, because without them, we wouldn't have anything, right? We would have no products to sell. We'd have, like Taylor and I would have no reason to do what we're doing. So, with that, like we can't just go and hiring a bunch of people. And again, we don't necessarily want people to work for us just to keep them there for like a month or two because we're in a tight spot. Like if we bring you on, like you're part of the team, like it's kind of like Sons of Anarchy style. Like if you wear the Dialed patch, there's only one way of like leaving, and that's us taking that patch back type of deal, so it's like we very much like protect our team, and we're very protective of like, I guess, our like brand, and we have a very certain like culture that we carry. So again, it's not something where we just make knee jerk reactions on. Like it's got to be very strategic, and again, just finding the right people. So, again, we really could use a few more people, but at the same time, we're maintaining like where we're at. So, as we grow, like more of those opportunities will open up, and, doing more trade shows, like we're already planning for next year in being like, we got to do some shows, and, we can't just be hermits and recluses and just stay home all the time. But, at the same time, to your point, we do all the TAC events.
Yep.
So, I mean, we have 15 of those sons of bitches coming up here in a couple months. So it's like
every weekend
staying home over the winter helps us because one, I mean, we're saving money and banking it, and then we can invest it in a much bigger, event schedule. But then two, we're also saving us, banking our energy. And, because a lot of people don't truly understand like those TAC events, when you're going from one event to the other, to the other, to the other, like we call ourselves bow carnies, because you really feel like you're just part of a carnival and you're just traveling from state to state to state. But it's wearing, and, having to do that, December through April, and then going right into tax season, there's no way we would survive. Just mentally, like we'd be so run down. And, in the end, we want anybody that has any interaction with us to have a very positive and good experience. And, if we're run down, I'm not going to be happy. So, like, I'm not going to be the best I can. So, not trying to make excuses for it all, but it's all strategic.
Right.
It's not like we say hell with, Western Hunt or hell with ATA because we just don't want to go, which, there definitely is some of that, like, especially me, as I've gotten older, I've just become more of a homebody. But, it's just, again, we have to look at it from what, the resources we have available to us. And that also includes financially too, to attend a trade show. It's not cheap. By the time you pay for booth space, decorations, a booth, if you have to redesign a new booth or new artwork or whatever, but then, to pay to have a team there, it's very costly. So we just really have to be mindful of where our time and resources are being allocated. And this year it just, we just chose to save some money over the winter, and we're going to invest it later on, over the summer. So
yeah. Now
there's a simple answer to your question.
Now I want to commend you guys to an extent, because that mentality of like, you put on the dial patch and you're part of the family, that has largely spilt over into the consumer. You can look at brands and tell like who's got that dedicated, like, I'm a dialed guy, man. And you guys have that, like, people who rock that dialed badge and use dialed sights, they're passionate about the brand. And I think, again, it's because it spills over from how you guys handle yourself as a company. And that was one of the largest reasons, like, when I moved away from the old platform and started this, that was why I wanted to align myself with you guys, because you look at it and you're like, why are all these dudes so passionate about dialed? Because it's not only a sight on their bow, but it really is an identity they take on. And so kudos to you guys, man, because you have built I don't want to say cult following, but like you said, it really is that. Once you put on the dialed badge, man, it's like you feel like you're part of the family. And so I think you guys have done really good with that.
I appreciate that. And that truly means a lot, because that's, from day one, that's truly what we strive for. Like, when we started Dialed, we obviously wanted to build, a badass product and, build this badass company. But one of the most important parts to us is the community. Yeah. Right. And, we purposely kind of, market Dialed, and, a lot of the decisions we make for Dialed, it's based around building that community, and not a business that's based around, we need every sale we can get, like building that cult following and like trying to appease to the masses. Like, we would rather have this tight knit little, like, there's sayings, and I can think of one that comes to mind because I just saw it on a reel, but it's like, it's kind of like when you think about like your friends group, like your friend group, right? Like, I don't need 50 friends. I need 5 friends, and those 5 friends, we could take out that group of 50. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's based on quality versus quantity. So that's how we look at like the Dialed community is, we never set out to build a brand that would be for everybody, right? We fully accept and again, it's kind of by design, like, we are a niche product, right? But if you like what we're doing and you believe in what we're doing and you believe in, our message, like, if you're part of, the Dialed community, like, we're just as dedicated to you as you are to us. Yeah. And you see that again in like a lot of our marketing, like, we use a lot of like kind of the Norse, theme and stuff, primarily because both Taylor and I have very strong, Norse heritages, but there's a lot of truth and like a lot of meaning behind that type of like mindset. Like, if your team Dialed, like me personally, like, I will not only bust my ass for you, but I will bleed for you. Right. Like, if you need something, we're there, and so we really try to protect, again, like that secure network, or like that, again, that community. Yeah. So, if I don't believe you can build a community like that if you're like trying to appease to the masses. Right. And, for the people that do that, that's great. That's just not us. We'd rather have this tight knit, really, really strong group of believers. And, that at the end of the day, that's what makes us happy, I guess. So,
and I think the perfect example of that is the release of the Pruf. And if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me say it. I can't think of another company. A lot of people take feedback from customers and look at that when they go into the production, but I can't think of many companies that have done it as well as Dialed with the production of the Pruf. Every single thing that I've ever heard about the Arxos on feedback was addressed on the Pruf. And it was super impressive. Like there wasn't one thing where I was like, well, a lot of people mentioned this on the Arxos and it wasn't fixed. You know, it wasn't changed. It wasn't, every single thing was addressed. And I'm like, dude, these guys get it. Like these guys understand the value of the feedback that they're getting from customers and they're listening. Like it was insane when the Pruf came out. It was like, holy crap, they fixed. I don't want to say fixed. Like, you know what I mean though? Every single thing was addressed.
Right.
Everything. And it was so impressive to me. And it just goes to show, like you said, like you're here for the community of the dialed community. Like you listen to every word they said and everything was addressed. And it was so cool.
Well, and that's why we named it the Pruf it's proof that we listen, and being a newer company and kind of, coming to the stage, there was just a lot of what ifs. I mean, on our end and on, the consumer end, there was a lot of like, who are these guys? Because to your point in the very beginning, like we did come out swinging, we did come out like, cannonballing off the high dive and making this big splash, which was our goal. But with that came, a lot of skepticism, a lot of criticism, and, a lot of feedback. And even, to this day, we still say like, we appreciate and like accept any and all feedback. Right now, like if you're just going to be an asshole, you're probably not going to get a very positive response from us. But if you have constructive feedback or constructive criticism or ideas, thoughts, whatever, and it doesn't matter who it's from, we always listen and we'll always take it into consideration. So it was very evident right out of the gates that, and we knew it, with the first, design of the Arxos, we knew right away that we had some things that we really needed to change. And it was primarily on, the production and the assembly side. But then as more and more units got out into the marketplace and we started getting more feedback, we started learning more, which, that's part of the whole, product life cycle, right? Is like, we literally got to the point, I've told the story hundreds of times, but we got to the point where we were making so many revisions to the Arxos design that we were actually going backwards. Like, we weren't progressing, we were going backwards because we were trying to make it so perfect. And I think that, if I can think of one of our biggest faults is the fact that everybody on our team are perfectionists. So, and none of us ever want to disappoint anybody, and that was like one of our biggest fears with the Arxos, but you have to get it out into the marketplace and get it out to the masses. Cause we can stare at something for months and, anybody, whether it's, a product, publication, or even like your homework when you're a kid, right? Like you can proof and you can go over things 100 times, but you're always going to miss something, or you almost get so like tunnel vision that you kind of lose your perspective. So really the only way to, is to make it better is to get it out into the marketplace. And you got to have thick skin because people will let you know right away what they like and what they don't like. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to tell you what they like. They're going to tell you what they don't like.
Yeah, for sure.
So, right out of the gates, we started collecting all that information and all that feedback. And we knew that there was going to be a Gen 2 product. Honestly, I didn't know it was going to happen as fast as it did, but it was just very evident that, we needed to make some changes. And not only just from, outside, again, feedback and criticism, internally, the more sites we built, the more we learned, like, man, this is really time consuming. Like, and it's 100% true what they say, time is money, so there was a lot of revisions we wanted to make internally to make, things a little bit easier for us to assemble, easier to produce, all that. So it just, it bumped up our timelines a little bit faster. But, going back to your previous question about, the trade shows and stuff, with launching a new product in October, and again, being a small team, being a private, company, like Dialed is 100% financed and funded by Taylor and I. We do not have anybody handing us money outside of, the loans we took, the savings accounts that we cashed in. So, launching a new product is very expensive. And launching the Arxos compared to the Pruf, those two launches were completely different, because when we launched the Arxos, we had money. And, looking back, we were probably pretty foolish in certain areas where we paid more than we should have, or, put money towards something that we probably shouldn't have. But, in the beginning, you have all that excitement and, you just want to do everything right. And again, one of our biggest fears is disappointing people. So then going through that and then launching Pruf, we knew Pruf had to be perfect because, the Arxos was good, but the Arxos had enough time in the marketplace to where, there was the people that loved it and then there was the people that didn't like it. And it was like one or the other. There was like nobody in the middle. But, so launching the Pruf, we were like, everything has to be perfect with this because we will not get a third chance. Like we're going to get one more chance to prove ourselves. And if we don't hit the mark, then there's going to be no Dialed. You know what I mean? And, so, we invested a lot of money and a lot of time just to try to get everything as perfect as we could. And, the launch had to be perfect. So, again, Taylor calls it the launch bubble of the Pruf, and we're still kind of exiting that bubble. So again, going back to the trade shows, it's like after coming off of a big launch like that, like you got to recover a little bit. So, but I think overall, the launch of the Pruf it's been very successful. And to hear like yourself, appreciate the changes that we made and fully understand, like, we did listen, we were paying attention to, the comments and reviews. And hopefully everybody else can kind of see that as well, as the Pruf continues to get out into the marketplace. But I mean, it was a huge undertaking. And, but again, it was something that needed to be done. And I think our whole team is, we're pretty proud of what we've come up with.
And I know you're just, like you said, you're on the exit of that launch bubble, so it's still hard to tell. But like you said, it needed to be perfect, and it was kind of a make or break, do or die. Do you think you hit the mark? I mean, you think you did it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, perfect is that's a fictitious goal, mm-hmm. right? Because there is no perfect, but that doesn't mean that's not going to keep us from trying. I mean, are there still little tweaks like that we wish we could have made? Sure. But, you're also, you can only work with what you know. Right.
Right.
And, that was like the big thing with the Arxos is, there was a lot we didn't know where now we do. But, the more sites we ship, the more feedback we're going to get. And, we're going to keep learning, over the next 12, 18, 24 months. So no, is it perfect? No, it'll never be perfect. But did we hit the mark? I 100% think we did.
Yeah.
Again, given the information that we had and the capabilities of, our internal and external team, like I said, I think everybody's pretty freaking proud of what we've built. And, I look at it as, the Arxos was our introduction, right? That was like our foot in the door. And, I think, thankfully we had, Taylor and Jordan on, the marketing side of things and their team to help Dialed look as good as it does. And now we have the product to back up the marketing, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
So it's like the marketing is what exposed Dialed. The Arxos is what kind of got us on the playing field. But now the Pruf is like, it's proof, pun intended, that, we're here to play. And, Dialed's not the same company as it was 12 months ago.
Yeah.
We're in a different headspace where, just this morning we had our weekly team meeting, and it's just, the excitement within, like not only just the Dialed team, but the Dialed community. It's pretty freaking awesome. So
I'm glad I'm glad you say that. Like, I'm glad you admit and say, like, yeah, we did it, but is it perfect? No. because I hate that mentality. Like, and I used to say it like when I would do reviews of bows or sights or rests, like, this is the best thing I've ever shot. Mm-hmm. Is it really though? Like, is there not one thing that you couldn't critique about this? And that's why, like, I tell people, like, when somebody's asking me like, well, what about this review? And I'm like, if they didn't say one negative thing, not even negative, if they didn't say one thing that could have been improved on or one thing they would like to see on it, I wouldn't even listen to their review. Right. Because like there's always something where you're like, man, I really like this, but I wish this would have happened too. Like,
and I think, one thing you'll never see us do too is we never hide like negative reviews.
Yeah.
Where a lot of companies, you go to their, like, the one thing, like, I think a lot of people kind of forget too is, we're consumers too. We buy stuff every day, whether it's in our personal lives or, for the shop or whatever. Like, I mean, we're consumers, so we look at reviews, if we're buying new tools for the shop, we read reviews, we do research, right? And, you can always tell a brand that is trying to hide behind like the glory to where they don't want you to see the negative reviews. But, like in our opinion, a bad review is better than no review. Like if people aren't talking about your product, that's worse than them giving you like a bad review, right? Because it means they don't care.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
That's why, like I said, like you'll never see us hide, unless somebody's just, like I said, being an asshole, then you don't deserve the time of day from us because that's just not helping anybody. But if you give us constructive reviews, constructive criticism, we almost prefer that because that's how we get better. Right.
Yeah.
And, like I said, it'll never be perfect, but none of us are perfect. You've known me long enough. Like, I'm far from, but, no, we just, like I said, we just try to do as much as we can to,
right.
With as expensive as our products are, we try to make sure that if you decide to purchase one of our products, like you see the value, not just on the tangible part, but on the customer service side. Like we put a lot of value on our customer service because that is one of the most important parts of our business. And it's probably our highest priority outside of producing, like quality products. So there's just a lot that goes into it. And like I said, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure, to the best of our abilities that everybody, sees the value and has a good experience with Dialed and wants to be part of that, that Dialed community that we were talking about before.
And when I say this, I want you guys to know, like, I haven't had a Pruf on a bow yet. Cause like Scott said, he's not perfect.
That's my fault.
I haven't had one on a bow, but I've played with one. And my only criticism of the sight is also a criticism of other sites. What's fixing a criticism of another site. So the only thing I complain about is that on the Pruf, you still hit the windage knob when you're turning the dial. Mm-hmm. However, a complaint I have on other sites is that they put the wheel way out from the sight, so it's bumping on stuff, it's hitting stuff. So you fix the complaint about that for other sites by compacting it and putting it right there. And everything's just bulletproof. So I don't know that can be fixed, like without, again, pulling that knob way out like I complain about on other sites. But that was the first thing I noticed was just, oh man, I still hit the elevation or the windage knob when you're turning the dial.
Yeah. And it's, I'll be honest. Even as, the one of the owners and, of Dialed, like, yeah, there's stuff that, to your point, like I do find that obnoxious, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's so infrequent that it happens.
Right. And that's why I said, again, I haven't played with one a ton. I haven't had it on a bow, hunted with it, shot hundreds of shots with it.
It only happens when you're making big adjustments. Right. And, honestly, like, me personally, I don't have the rotation to go go through the whole travel the dial. So like, but you're right. Like, where, Could it be fixed? Sure. But I mean, you're talking about a complete redesign.
Yeah,
right?
that's a whole new site. I mean, that takes away part of what the Dialed is built on is the void. And
the one thing we've learned and I've learned is any change you make doesn't come for free. There's always a cost to it. So whether it's an actual monetary, like financial cost, or you have to sacrifice something else somewhere else in the design. And so then, like we have these scorecards, like, when we're designing something, like we make these scorecards of what's truly important and then what's like a wish, item. And, that is something where, you notice it when it happens, but there's so much other like positives of the site that's really not that big a deal. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, the fact that we added the switch lever, which allows you to completely lock the dial in place, that was a huge add. And again, that was something that a lot of customers asked us for. So, if we would have eliminated or built more room into the site to where that 1 in 50 times you hit your finger on the windage, we may not have been able to include that switch lever, right? So you really got to pick and choose. And again, it's like when I say like we're open to like all feedback and all criticism, like I truly mean it. But there's also like, okay, now you're just being picky. And like we had a retailer, and I won't call them out by name because they're a very good retailer and we love them regardless. But, we put a lot of time and energy into our packaging this year because one of our big initiatives with the Pruf is getting into more dealers, right? Where with the Arxos, we couldn't just because of production capabilities, profitability. None of it was really that attractive for a dealer, or a dealer program. So when we were designing the new packaging, we wanted it to be completely, 360 degree visibility. Like you could see every little angle, nook and cranny of the site, whatever. So then, we had to put a tab on the top to hang it from. Well, the tab we use, there's a little bit of play in it, but the tab can't slip through the package, right? So you do have to kind of pull up on the tab in order to hang it on a peg hook. And they were complaining about how the tab would move. And it's like,
just shut up.
Forget all the other changes we made,
shut up.
And how many hundreds of thousands of dollars it cost us to redesign this package. But now you're complaining about a 5-cent tab.
Yeah.
That when you hang the product, it's going to pull the tab out anyways. But I mean, it's like, like I said, like nothing is perfect. And I'm sure, to your point, like, the longer you stare at, something, you can always find flaws and find things. But at the end of the day, I still think our team still thinks like the Pruf is by far like one of the best sites available.
I would agree.
If you, again, like you're interested in what we're trying to do. And again, the whole goal was to build a very simple, basic site that us as hunters, it can withstand all the, the banging around and, the challenges that we go through, or like the challenges we put our equipment through. But also, I don't ever say like our site is better than anybody else's, because a site is a site, right? It's an aiming mechanism. And, you think back like, well, we're both involved with Pope and Young, right? Mm-hmm. How many deer still get shot with traditional equipment, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, a site is a site. We're all using the same materials, but I truly believe that the Pruf is a site that we can give to somebody and they will notice a difference. Yeah. Like, they could have ran every other site on the market and liked them all, but when they run a Pruf, like they will notice a difference, right? Whether that's physically, downrange, or just the overall, experience of using it. I think that we've really just changed kind of how sites are built and how sites are looked at, like as a category. And, obviously with the growth of Dialed and, the popularity that the Pruf has been gaining, others are starting to realize that as well. But then we also, the cool, cosmetic, where, we do all the different colors and color match and, all that type of stuff. So,
and you started a trend there too.
There.
I mean, you have other companies have said, man, maybe we need to make our sites just look sexier.
You're welcome.
Yeah. You're welcome, archery industry. Let me share a little bit about why I am so passionate about Mountain Ops. Yeah, they make incredible supplements to help me in my everyday life, on the mountain, in the gym. Great supplements. However, they also support my rights as a hunter. They're also Christian owned, which is something that I value a ton. And then third, through Operation Conquer Hunger, for every order that's placed on mountainops.com, they're providing a healthy meal to a family in need. Guys, if you use supplements at all, I would highly encourage you to look at not only the supplements that a company is pushing out, but also what that company represents. So guys, go check out mountainops.com, because it's a company that I can not only support because they make great products, but because they support the same things that I support. They support me as a hunter as well. So guys, go to mountainops.com, use code TYPICAL. That's going to save you a lot on your order, and you're still going to provide a meal for somebody who's in need of a healthy meal. Mountainops.com, discount code TYPICAL. Go check them out today. My favorite product by far is Ignite. I use it every single day before I podcast, before I sit down to work, before I go to the gym. I use it all the time. I use it on the mountain religiously. Ignite is my favorite product by far. However, they have a full line of supplements to help you conquer the mountain, conquer the day, conquer work, whatever you're looking to do. They've got something for you. Mountainops.com, discount code TYPICAL. Now, and I don't know that I should ask this question because I kind of know your personality and we might go on to some rants here, but yeah, let's do it.
I tend to rant. Yeah.
Here's what makes me so furious about the archery industry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We beg.
Now you're going to get me riled up.
I am.
Now.
We beg for innovation. We beg for change.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then when something new and innovative comes along, we throw it in the mud and criticize it. Mm-hmm. Because just like you said, either people like love the Arxos. Holy crap, somebody's trying something new. It looks different. It feels different. It's built different. Or people hated it. And they're like, I mean, well, we'll get there. But the moment that something new and innovative comes along, we trash it. Like, why are you changing what's always worked?
Mm-hmm.
But yet we're begging for innovation and we're begging for change.
Right.
So how do you navigate those waters of like, yeah, we want to make something new. We want to innovate and push the needle. We want to move the archery industry forward. But yeah, we can't just like throw out everything we've ever had and known, because like you said, a site is a site. Like we can only do so much, but you know what I mean? Like, how do you navigate those waters? And I don't mean navigate the waters with like just the pricks that sit back and say, well, why don't we see something new? And then when something new comes out, they criticize it. But how do you navigate the waters of like innovating and changing while staying true to archery?
Yeah, I think that's a $1 million question. And, I know I don't have the right answer to it, but I mean, I think overall, as a company or as a, participant in archery, whatever, like, one, you're never going to make everybody happy. Right. And like I said, one of our biggest fears is disappointing people, but we also have to accept the fact that there are going to be people that you just can't make everybody happy. Right. But at the end of the day, without innovation, our industry will die. The archery industry it's a very unique kind of group of people to where, I've been very fortunate to where I've been involved in the industry from a very young age. It's literally all I've done. It's all I know. If I ever were to walk away from the archery industry, I have no clue what I would even do. But, looking through looking over the years, over the, several decades of being in the industry, how many products that have been introduced that were just before their time, but the fact that that group of people were taking the risk and innovating, they may have lost the battle at that time, but, now looking forward, those products, like, we all use them. One of the best examples I can think of is like ozone, right? Like, and how, like, that is not a new concept to our industry. Like, a lot of people never know that back in the early, like, 2000s, it was like 2007-ish, sometime around there was a company that tried introducing an ozone machine for hunting, and, tried to market it as this unit that you could put in a closet to, deodorize and clean your hunting clothing. And it was like right around, $500, I think, for the unit at the time. And I happened to be a sales rep for that company when they launched it. And it was like, it was like trying to sell ice to an Eskimo. Like, no, everybody laughed at it. Everybody, they didn't understand it. And now, for the last, 10 years, ozone is probably one of the biggest, fastest growing categories. Right. So, but again, if somebody wouldn't have tried it however many years ago, it may never have became a thing, or it may have taken longer. So, innovation it's tough because, and I understand it more now than I ever have. Like, the amount of resources it does take to innovate it's insane, but we need it, and it's a losing battle because, again, you're battling the keyboard warriors, you're battling, social media and all these other, factors. But I think there's right and wrong ways of doing it too. And again, more now than ever, I've kind of, I'm a marketing major, but my marketing major from, I'm not even going to say however long ago, is pretty irrelevant because marketing is completely different nowadays. So, I don't, like, somebody once told me, like, there's no such thing as a bad idea. There's poor execution, So, like you said, everybody screams for innovation and new and whatever. But then when it happens, you're right. They're so quick to criticize or they bash the price, right? Like, that was one of the big things that we got hit with when we first launched, was like, there's no way a site costs this much. Like, there's no way it should cost this much. And it's like if you actually knew, like, what it costs to manufacture hard goods in the United States.
Yeah, that's another thing. They cry about, why don't we see more goods made here in the United States? Then when they do, they cry about the price of it. Like, right. Come on, guys.
But I think people are that's starting to come around, but it's just tough. Innovating it's got to be one of the hardest things for a company to either start off doing or to get into, which I think is why you see so many companies I'm guilty of it. Like, I say, a lot of these companies, other companies, both in our industry and outside of our industry, they'll launch product and call it new. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like, because you introduced a different color, there's nothing new. Like, right. It's the same product with a different paint job. That's not new. Right. So I think that's one thing that has almost hurt, like, us as, companies, but also as consumers, is this term new. Like, what does new actually mean? Right. Like, so, it's like I said, I don't have the answer, but it makes it super difficult. And I think it makes a lot of companies gun shy to innovate because there's a risk that's attached to that. Like, what if we come out with a new product and we innovate and our current following doesn't like it? Do we lose them? Do we lose, like, customers as a whole? So I think that there's a fear factor in there as well. But, again, I go back to the saying, like, without innovation, there's no bloodline. And, that was one thing when we started. One of our goals was, like, whether Dialed was around for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, if there's one thing we can say we did, it's hopefully motivate the younger generations or even older generations to kind of follow our example and not be afraid to try something new, because our industry needs it, right? Like it needs new blood. It needs innovation in order to keep moving forward. So yeah, I don't know what the right, what the right answer is there. Cause like I said, innovation it takes a lot of time and money. But if you do it right, it can definitely, it can project you into a different, a whole different level, which, we're seeing currently, but, it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, and a good example of that, is Prime. And I did a podcast with Brian, a mutual friend of ours, on the forum when it was released. And before everybody starts yelling, well, yeah, you're sponsored by them, you're going to say good things about them. I've said plenty of negative about the forum, and I've said plenty of things I don't like about the forum. But I told Brian on that first podcast, I said, dude, listen, whether the bow is good or not, whether this bow sucks and it's one of the worst bows ever made, thank you for trying something new. Like, thank you for trying to push the needle, for trying to innovate and change and see something different. Like, even if this bow falls flat on its face and it's going to take, 2 more bow models to make it good, thank you for trying something new.
Well, and that's, it's, I think that's a perfect example because one, it's very recent, right? But, I talked to BA a couple of weeks ago and he said the same thing. He's like, why haven't I seen you on the show tour? Like you think you can just stay home while the rest of us are out on the road? And I was like, yeah, kind of. But I know I said the same to him because we have a forum at the shop. I have not shot it yet, but when they launched that, I was like, what in the hell? Like, and I'm not going to say I looked at it and my first thought was that's stupid, but I definitely was. I was skeptic, I was so curious and intrigued.
Yeah.
Right. And I think as consumers or just as people, we fear what we don't know. Right. And I think if people can take that fear and turn it into curiosity, right. And rather than going and just bashing, like, I'm not on social media, so I don't know what the comments were, when they launched that, but I can imagine, like I'm sure there was some harsh, criticism, but I told BA, I said, I give you guys so much props for one, and nothing against any other the bow manufacturers. We are not biased. Like, we use them all, and we have friends that work at all the bow companies, so we love them all. It would have been so easy for them to just kind of follow the mold and just come out with a straight carbon riser, like PSC, like Elite, like Hoyt, you know what I mean? And again, nothing against any of those bow brands, but the fact that Prime, they decided to take, a category, the carbon riser category, and put their own spin on it. Like that, we love that because that's what we did. Right. Yeah. And the fact that you're willing to take the risk, try something different and pave your own path and tell your own story. That's Dialed. Like, and again, how it will turn out, time will tell, but you can already see, kind of the backing. And I think a lot of people are kind of thinking the same way. And even from like on the dealer side, like the amount of dealers that I've talked to that, they'll ask us, be like, hey, can I get a demo site? We got a new form that, we want to put a site on. So, I think we're in a time now where, again, going back to your innovation, question, that I think it's becoming more acceptable, right? To where people are starting to understand and be a little more patient and not be so quick to bash. Again, if the story and everything is marketed correctly, if you think you're just going to come out, try some wacky idea and it's going to be successful, like that's not how it works. Right. But no, I, like I said, I give those guys huge props for trying something different, and, what they have planned for that design is pretty cool. So I'm super excited to see how that all unfolds. And it seems like it's doing very well for them. But, again, I think they did it right with how they introduced that bow, and, they kind of let the rumor mill take over, and, people started talking about it. And then, when they actually got bows in people's hands and stuff, it validates that, they're probably onto something there. So
I wish I could go back and hear all the feedback from like the big innovative switches in our industry. Like, I wish I could go back and hear the feedback, like when, Fred Bear introduced the takedown or whatever, and people saying this is so stupid.
I can remember, and again, this is going to age me, but I feel very fortunate to have gotten into the industry when I did. Cause like, I remember when carbon arrows first came out, everybody shot aluminums, and then all of a sudden carbon arrows came in. There were these pencil thin, little micro diameter with these ugly outserts. And, it was sold that they're either straight or they're broken, but in, the amount of people that bashed carbon arrows. And I remember, like, I grew up, learning archery from my dad and my uncle, and, watching them, my uncle was in the industry, so he had an ear to like what was new and all that stuff, and watching them try the new stuff. But like, I remember I was, in the industry when Matthews first came on the scene, and the amount of people that bashed Matthews right out of the gate, because I think at that time, like, the average high-end bow retailed for like $300 to $400. And then Matthew came on the scene and they were charging, $500 something for a bow. And it was like, that's ridiculous. Like, could you imagine, spending $500 on a flagship bow now? Like,
okay.
But I mean, everybody's gone through it. Everybody's gone through it, and I remember like Rage, for example. Like, you can say what you want about Rage, love it or hate it, but talk about a product that has, I don't know if there's been a product that's made as big a splash as they did when they first came on the scene. Yeah. But the amount of people that, the skepticism behind that broadhead, like I said, you can literally think probably any brand out there, you could probably find some sort of, criticism, from when they first launched. But I think that's just part of it. But look at where a lot of those brands are now. It's
for sure, man.
So you can use it as a, you can let it, hinder and, make you feel sorry for yourself, or you just prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And, that's Dialed. It's kind of like the more like we use, it's kind of amazing what you use for, or what you find to use as motivation. And it just keeps you going.
And I don't know how much I should say about this. And being a board member, you might get on to me. I don't know. But Pope and Young has decided, and again, I can't say too much, but Pope and Young's decided to start giving some awards for those, innovators and changers and pioneers over the course of the archery industry. And it's something I think is really cool. It's something I think needs to be done because they face all that criticism, but they were the ones that changed the industry forever. And, and so stay tuned for more information on that. Again, I don't know what all I can share and what all I can't, but, I'm really excited. When I heard that, I thought that's something that needs to be done. Like, we as an industry, we do really good about like celebrating the people that are, currently working to push the industry, but we don't ever look back and celebrate the people who really brought us to where we're at. And so I'm excited for that.
I am too. And that's one thing, not to kind of, divert and change topics here, but just on that, topic of Pope and Young and, recognizing the pioneers in our industry, that was one of the big reasons why I got involved with Pope and Young, was because of some of those pioneers, and then, learning about, Saxon Pope and Art Young, like, who I knew nothing about until I got involved. But it's like, there are a lot of current relevant, people in our industry that do a lot of really good things, but I don't know if anybody will have the impact like some of those people did, like, Fred Bear, who everybody knows, but, like it's
Pete Shepley and those guys who changed our industry.
Yeah. And, like Jim Doherty and even like Jack Frost, Tim Hoffman, like some of the first super slammers, like people that nobody will ever know unless you're in it, or involved in Pope and Young. But I mean, they changed the industry forever and how we kind of look at the industry. Right. And, again, there's plenty of people currently that do a lot, but you have to recognize the past before you can recognize the present. But, it is, but it's crazy to think about, like, that's not even that long ago.
Right.
You know what
It's
I mean?
really not.
Like,
the archery industry is young. I mean, in comparative to other industries,
it really is, but I think that's like one of the frustrating parts. And, again, I mean, we can go on and on about Pope and Young, but I think that's like frustrating for me, like somebody that's like my age and that's been in the industry as long as I have, is like, you see the opportunity for the industry and you see like the opportunity for like Pope and Young. Right. And, I don't know if like young is technically the right word, because it is a very old, archery is archaic, right? But as far as archery as a
commercial industry,
perfect. Yep. It is very young, and that's where we need organizations like Pope and Young, and even like Boone and Crockett, Rocky Mountain, all these organizations, like, if we don't do something to get the younger generation, and I mean like our, age and younger, involved, then the industry will never progress. And whether that's, buying a Pope and Young membership for $45 or getting a group of buddies together and being like, hey, remember that idea we were talking about the other weekend? Like, I think we should maybe let's look at that as a business idea. Right.
Yeah.
And whether it's you that do it or you pitch it to somebody else, like, our industry needs growth, and that growth has to come from someplace,
For sure.
I think there's a lot of factors that come into play, but not just one of those areas can handle it all. So it's, there's a lot that's gotta happen, but I think it does start, at the nonprofit level and getting the support. And, you've heard me say this and I've said it 100 times, but I truly, I live and die by this saying, like, if you're not involved in some sort of organization, then, I mean, you're against us.
Yeah.
So, if you're not willing to help and be a solution to the problem, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and to take that a step further. And again, I'm not just talking Pope and Young here. I'm talking your local organizations. I'm talking, like Scott said, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Deer Association, Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever. If you're not part of those organizations and your rights as a hunter are attacked or taken from you, you have no right to complain. You don't get to complain.
Don't bitch. Yeah. Don't bitch.
You didn't do anything to help protect it, so you have no right to complain. And that's something, when you came on the board at Pope and Young, I was so excited because the very first time, like when I interviewed for my job at Pope and Young, I said, and I don't remember, I think I said 40 at the time, but now I would say 50 because it's been, that long. Everybody under the age of 50 doesn't understand our past, so they can't work to protecting our future. And so I was so excited when you came on board because you were right under that, like, okay, well, Scott, is a younger guy in the industry, but us younger guys, we have a bad habit of just taking advantage of, well, I've always had a hunting season. I'm always going to have a hunting season, whereas like my dad's age and my grandpa's age, they recognize like, man, when I was a kid, we didn't have these opportunities. Like,
right.
I've talked to guys who remember the very first bow hunting seasons in their state. Mm-hmm. And, they remembered a time when it was not legal to archery hunt. And so they understand the value in organizations that are protecting our rights. But everybody under that age mark is just like, well, I've always had these opportunities. What do you mean I need to fight to protect them? And so that's why I was so excited to see a younger generation starting to, I'm of that younger generation, but starting to recognize like, man, we got to protect these rights or it's going to be taken. And so,
and I take it a step further even, and even, I never thought this way, when I was younger, cause I mean, knowledge takes time. Right. And, the older you get, the more experience you get, the more, well, for most people, the smarter you get, not necessarily with me. Seems like I get dumber the older I get,
yeah,
but,
same.
recognizing that, the companies that support those organizations too. And like what companies are, Dialed as a young company, like we do not have a lot of money, you know what I mean? But yet we still allocate a certain percentage to supporting, Pope and Young and other nonprofits and stuff. And, I think that says a lot of, like we're not in this just, it's not a get rich plan for us. Like, I mean, Taylor and I, we still don't get paid from Dialed, right? So, but the fact that we're still putting money towards these organizations, it shows like what's important to us, right?
Yeah.
And, again, I mean, the nonprofits, like going back to like being perfect, like none of them are perfect. Like you and I could sit here and, I mean, we could list a huge list of things that, we have issues with Pope and Young, but at the end of the day, Pope and Young they fight for our rights as bow hunters and as hunters. So, that's worth supporting right there, and, over time, hopefully some of the things, will change, the club will grow. And, as we hopefully get some younger, members involved, like it takes time, but at the end of the day, they are still fighting for our rights as bow hunters. So again, I go back, like, if you're one of those people that are sitting back and bitching because, your archery season's too short, or, they're taking away your city limits, archery hunt, like,
or there's muzzleloaders in my archery season, or there's crossbows are now in my archery season. I mean, again, if you're complaining about that type of stuff, but you're not part of an organization that's working to help protect those,
right?
You don't get to complain. Like,
well, and the other thing is, like, I mean, again, we, Pope and Young, we can, because we're both involved with it, but it's like the club will never advance if we don't have more members either, because that's more outside perspective that gets brought in too. Right. Like, I mean, as board members, I mean, we talk every month and, we have people reaching out and, giving us their opinions and stuff, but, our voice is still pretty small. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if we have a bigger voice, we can make a bigger impact. Yeah. But in order to have that bigger voice, we need more members. And again, I didn't understand this until I got involved, and it truly took attending the convention in St. Louis to truly get a bigger and better understanding of the club. And again, I'm talking about Pope and Young because it's relevant, but I mean, any organization, Pope and Young, for $45 a year, you're a general member. $45 a year.
Yeah.
Right. That is not a big expense. And now you're part of an organization that is, fighting for your rights. But then as you advance, you get a bigger voice within the club, which is going to help advance and progress the club. Right.
Well, that's so I actually had a guy last week. He called me with all these complaints about Pope and Young. And he's like, I just don't know that I want to renew. And I just told him, I said, well, listen, here's what I want to challenge you with. I said, all of the complaints that you're saying, we as a staff and we as a board member we as board members and staff members have already talked about these very issues. Like we're already working to address these issues because we recognize them as well. But I just asked him, I said, and listen, do you think that we're going to take your concerns more serious as a member or as somebody who's not in the organization? Like you're saying you don't want to be a member because of these issues, but we need members to voice their issues so we can change them. Like it means nothing to me when somebody on social media just says, well, yeah, Pope and Young sucks for this reason. We're not a part of us. Why would I care what you have to say? Yeah. But when you join, then your voice from inside the organization carries more weight because you're one of us. You're a supporter. And that's why.
And it's, you see that the fact that you are a contributing member, I mean, it means you care. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, everybody's voice matters, but if you're just somebody that's going to sit on the sidelines and, throw, shade at the club when you don't even know, right? Yeah. Like you have no clue, like what we're even trying to do or the battles or the challenges we're up against. Like, so again, like we hear your voice, but when it comes to when it comes to basing decisions around, are we going to listen to somebody on the sidelines that's just making noise?
Yeah.
Or somebody that is actually a contributing member that is putting their money where their mouth is and actually does care about bow hunting and our rights as bow hunters and the club. like, yeah, you're 100% going to put more weight on that, but, again, everybody's voice matters. But if you truly want your voice to matter, then get involved.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, it's like me. I mean, it's like me going to the bar and being like, we live in Minnesota, right? But, I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm a Packers fan. It's like me going to a bar and being like, oh, the Vikings suck. And it's like, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know anything about the Vikings. So I just know they suck. It's kind of like, okay, nobody's going to take that seriously. Right. But if I list off, and I can't even list any of the Vikings players because I really don't care. But anyways, if you have like, if you have data and like facts to back it up, okay, that makes it a little more valid. Well, it's the same thing. If you're involved and you're putting your money where your mouth is and you do have concerns, it's a little more valid.
Well, and with our convention coming up, I just had a guy reach out and he was like, he was voicing his concerns and he's like, I just think it's stupid that you guys, miss the everyday bow hunter so you can recognize, these guys who are completing the sheep slams and the grand slams. And I'm like, that's funny. I was like, because we've never one time awarded or even mentioned who completed the grand slam in a convention. Like, we don't give those awards. And he was like, really? And I'm like, no, like, you're complaining about something that we've never done. Like, because you've never been to a convention, you think it's us sitting around, celebrating Chuck Adams and Frank Noska's and, Jack Frost. And it's not. Like, we've never called Chuck up and said, he completed another grand slam. Let's give it up for him. Like, we've never called Frank Noska up and said he completed another grand slam. Like, congratulations. That's not what it is at all. And if you take one moment to look at what we do and why we do it, you would know that's not what we do. But again, you're just sitting on the sidelines bantering about what you don't like when you don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the same can be said for, any organization, right? I mean, and when I say we, like as Pope and Young or, as an organization, like we're all battling the same, things. It's just different levels. So it's, again, it just goes back to like, it doesn't have to be Pope and Young. It doesn't have to be, but, research, whether it's, Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett, Rocky Mountain Elk, Mule Deer Foundation, Wild Sheep Foundation, like, they all are doing great things. So just 100%. Pick one or even two of them and get involved. And then figure out where you fit the best, what organization aligns with your goals and what you'd like to see and support them,
Yeah, 100%.
But,
well, and we also, going back to the innovation and going back to progressing our industry, Pope and Young gets a bad rap as being the technology police and they don't want to see innovation in our industry, which is absolutely not true. We don't want to see the abuse of technology in our industry. We don't want to see.
Not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I have that mentality,
right?
Until I got involved with the club, I looked at Pope and Young as like, they were anti-progression. Like they wanted things to go back to how they were in the early 1920s, where again, like going back to Saxton Pope and Art Young days, But I think the terminology is 100% what you just said. Is they are the police when it comes to abusing technology, right?
Yeah.
And taking away the element of fair chase. And again, I think, and I do think that's something as a club we could, maybe do a little bit better on promoting, but that's a different conversation. But again, it's, take it at surface level and then dig through the layers. Right?
Yeah. 100%.
And then you would see that like, we're actually not against technology. We're against people abusing technology to where it's not hunting anymore.
Yeah.
And, like perfect example is like drone recovery for deer, right? It's a big thing. It's a hot topic. I literally experienced it firsthand this last year, not for an animal, that I was recovering, but in a camp. And I will say it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I mean, it was insane to watch this drone and how like precise they are, and seeing the heat signatures to the deer, and then they can hit them with a spotlight to find that exact deer that's wounded, and then send the GPS coordination. Like it's amazing, but in the back of my head, I'm like, this will 100% get abused, 100% get abused, because literally 2 days later, the buck that I'm trying to kill, which would be the largest deer in my life, is at 50 yards, and the only shot I have is center mass or back. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I could shoot them in the guts and let them lay for 12 hours and let the drone go in the next day, and we will 100% find them. So it's like the fact, like that's the abuse.
Yeah.
That is the abuse part. And will everybody do that? No. Will some people do it? 100%.
Right.
So it's like, that's where Pope and Young, somebody has to set the standards before Pandora's box just opens and then it's a free for all. And now everybody's like shooting deer out of hang gliders or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, there's gotta be restraints. Otherwise it just, there's no order.
And I think we would both agree that this is one of the complaints that we would like to see fixed in Pope and Young. Like, yeah, I would like to see things addressed quicker and faster. But we just took back our stance on lighted archery sites. Like, we now recognize them as, okay, this is not an abusive technology. Should we have done that 15 years ago? Maybe, but we're slow. But we've made that stance change because we recognize, like, this is not an abusive technology. Now, there are things where we have to just simply draw the line too. Like, there are things we have to just say, okay, this is an abusive technology no matter what. Now, we will also be the first to say, like, I've heard Justin, our executive director, say, like, hey, listen, there's areas in this country where we can't kill enough deer. Like, let all the technology in you want. But yet we can't allow that technology out west where it takes 20 years to draw a tag. And so there has to be a line where we simply just draw the line. And we simply say, like, yeah, you can, you know, if you need to kill a whole bunch of deer every year, you know, in Alabama or wherever, you know, where deer are overpopulated, like, have at it. However, as far as an ethics standpoint go, we have to simply draw the line because this is a technology that could very easily be abused. Like, we're friends with the guys at Garmin. They're a corporate partner of ours. And, you know, we've talked to them about their site a lot. And yeah, there would be guys who use that site just fine, but there are also going to be guys who abuse that technology. Like, and,
you know, we don't say that you can't use any of those products or, you know, because I mean, as long as it's legal in your state or the state that you're hunting, we support it, right? It just, we don't allow it into the record books. So,
yeah,
you know, there's nothing that says you can't use whatever equipment you want. It's just when it comes to what's getting entered in the record books, there's more, you know,
which is funny to me because it's so easy for people to understand that in everything else other than hunting. Like, I told one guy, like, he was having trouble wrapping his mind around this. I'm like, well, they won't let me walk up against Levi Morgan and pull out a rifle with a scope on it. Why? Because it's a different weapon. It's a different sport. Like, same way, like, rules change as you move up in baseball. Like, the MLB is not saying, like, you know, these certain bats or these certain balls are completely unethical and you can never play ball with them. They're just saying, hey, when you get to our league, you can't use those because this is a league that we're trying to maintain. Yep. And it's so easy to understand that, like, until you get to hunting. And then it's like, well, all of a sudden now there's a bad guy that is trying to tell you, hey, there's a standard that we're trying to meet for these record books. It's just funny to me, but.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, trying to understand people is a losing battle.
100%. Well, Scott, man, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Yeah,
what's next for Dialed? Like, and I've asked you this before. Does Dialed ever have any plans of doing anything outside of sites?
Maybe.
Very cool. Now, okay, before I let you go.
Yeah.
What do you think the one area, you know, we're talking about innovation and change. What do you think the one area in hunting that offers the most, like, that could be upgraded the most, if that makes sense? And it doesn't have to just be archery. It could be, you know, boots or packs or bino harness. I mean, anything. Like, is there one thing where you're like, man, there could be a lot of advancement here? Because it is easy to look and say, well, there's already a bunch of sights. There's already a bunch of bows. There's already a bunch of packs. There's already a bunch of boots. There's already a bunch of camo. Do you think there's one area where you're like, I wish somebody would come and create something new?
No, I don't think so. Because, I mean, I think we're to a point, you know, just, and again, not just in archery, but, you know, I think now it literally just comes down to, you know, what can be done better. Right. Yeah. So maybe that's kind of like what you're asking, but, you know, for example, like you brought bino harnesses, right? How many bino harnesses companies are there? But I also look at it where, okay, if there's 40 bino harness companies out there, there must be a reason, right? So is that a lucrative market? Like, is that a growing market that can sustain, the more, or sustain more companies in, or more companies being in that category. Right. So, I think that's, I think there's opportunity in every category, whether it's sights, rest, releases, broadheads, stabilizers, quivers, whatever. I think there's endless possibilities. It's just, I think really for us, it's, again, because being a small team, and, we won't always be a small team, but where's our best opportunity to take what we do and bring it to that category. Right.
Yeah.
So, when you say, like, and even like in the camo, industry, or just hunting clothing in general, I mean, look how far that's come, from all of us wearing the, cotton, Michelin Marshmallow Man looking gear to where everything's very technical now. So, and I think with time and, technology from other industries, that's going to open up more opportunities in our industry. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but like, again, for us, I mean, I'll tell you straight out, like, there's not one product or one category that we are specifically looking at right now. We're entertaining a lot of different things. Right now we're going to stick with the sight category because we're still growing and there's still a lot of opportunity there. So we'll stay focused on that, but in the meantime, I mean, we have a lot of ideas of stuff we want to do. It's just when you put pen to paper, what's going to make the most sense, and, financially, where can we enter without a massive, investment, but also helps promote growth for us. So,
do you think there will ever be a new product that's introduced that changes the way archery is done forever? Like, take, for instance, the release aid. And again, I wish I could go back and read the comments from like when that was introduced, but do you think there will ever be a new product like that changes the way we do things forever? Like, that we're not currently using, but that would just redirect everything we do?
I mean, never say never,
Yeah.
I mean,
like you said, it's hard to look at and say like, well, this is something that if it was ever, anybody could ever pull it off, it would change us forever. But
yeah, I mean, again, I think back to like, products that have been tried before that were just before its time. And, I can come up with so many examples of that, like even, I mean, that like this whole inline mounting system that all the bows are doing, whether it's on the rest, the sight, whatever, that's not a new concept. I mean, that was tried 20, 30 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer. And again, it was just before its time. So, I don't know if there's ever going to be one thing that just truly changes archery forever, because, archery is a lot like golf, where so much of it is dependent on us, the shooter, and our form and our dedication and, how much practice. It's not always down to the equipment. You know what I mean? The equipment definitely helps, but it's like, like I do compare archery and golf a lot. I mean, but it's like, how many old timers do you know that are like 0 handicap golfers, but they're playing with clubs from like 15 years ago. Right. But it's just, they've been doing it for so long. They have their swing down, their form. And it's like, man, if they would upgrade to the new clubs, like, imagine then, but it's not always based on the equipment. So, I don't know. I like, my gut says no. I don't think there's ever just going to be one revolutionary product that changes the industry forever. But I mean, never say never. I mean, I don't, like I said, I think if that were to happen, it's technology that's not in our industry that's going to come from, some other industry, and somebody's going to apply it to the archery industry. But I just don't, because it is so much of a a discipline. I just don't know if there'll ever be one product that changes everything. But I think there'll be multiple products that change for sure.
I know this doesn't really regard to Dialed because Picatinny Mount was already introduced and moving forward when you guys, launched, but I also know you have a history in the sight world. Does something like that make accessory companies mad? Like, great, now we got to offer a new mounting system. Like, we have to develop a new mounting system for our sights because all these bows are going to pick mounts.
Yes and no. No, in the sense because it's just another opportunity for us to get more Dialed products out there, right? So, when you look at sales and growth and all that type of stuff, no, it's a great thing. But from a customer service standpoint or like the day-to-day business, it infuriates me. Because, the bow companies kind of dictate everything we do. And, they introduce this new mounting system, but then we're the ones that have to like educate people about it. And when somebody like purchases our sight with a Picatinny mount, and then they call us and they're like, "Oh, I ran out of right windage adjustment. What's wrong with your sight?" And it's not the sight. It's how the bow was set up. It's how the bow was tuned and that sort of thing. It doesn't make me mad, but that's what annoys me is, being an accessory company where like, the bow companies kind of light the match and start the fire. And then we have to, manage the fire. And then, we become kind of like people's personal bow techs.
Right.
But, at the same time, we also kind of enjoy that. Like we want people to look at us kind of more than just a sight company and as experts, in archery. So, it gives us more time to spend, more time talking to people and educating them, but it is frustrating.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this episode has been littered with technology problems. So if you're watching on YouTube or Wild TV or Carbon TV, my camera has died. So that's why there's no video feed anymore. But that's all right. Well, cool, man.
We were literally just talking about technology and innovation, and this is what we get.
Yeah. They're trying to shut us down, dude.
Yeah.
They hear what we're saying and they're trying to, choke us out.
Yeah. The world where like these guys are way too smart. They have us figured out. We need to just get rid of them.
Yeah. Or they're like, here's a couple dumb rednecks trying to talk about technology. Let's just prove that they don't know anything about. Let's just prove they don't know anything about technology. They can't run a camera. Well, cool, man. Guys, we mentioned that Dialed is not heavy on the show circuit. However, Total Archery Challenge is about to ramp up. I'm excited to be at a couple of them. So if you want to check out the new Pruf, come to a Total Archery Challenge or come to Glendale, Arizona, April 9th through the 12th. We're getting ready for an awesome convention. Dialed will be there. You can test out the sites, try them out. We have some exciting things, like we mentioned, some new awards that we are really excited to honor some people that have pushed the industry with innovation and change. We're also introducing a brand new first of its kind wild game showdown at Pope and Young. Going to be a fun time. Just come hang out, eat some good food, hang out with some cool people. Entered to win.
The trophy display too. I mean, the mounts that are going to be there. I mean, it's one of the coolest things you could see.
I think last I heard, I think the number was at 194 of the largest animals taken with archery equipment going to be on display. So if you like looking at antlers, which who doesn't, it is the coolest place to look at antlers and to see just the biggest, baddest trophies ever taken with archery equipment. So it is a really fun convention. And I don't know, your first one was St. Louis. My first one was Reno, but I can say this, I was a young guy coming into this and I'm like, dude, I don't kill giants. Like I'm a backyard bow hunter in Kansas. Like, how's this going to go? And I was accepted with open arms. Like I figured out real quick, like the Jack Frost and the Chuck Adams and the Tom Mirandas and the, all those guys, they're just as interested in hearing about your doe you shot last month than they are telling you about the giants they killed. Like it is a community worth being a part of. And I would highly encourage, if you can get out for one day, if you can get out for the entire show. We have some awesome seminars from some of our, incredible outfitters, incredible partners. It's a fun show. It's a laid back show, which is what I enjoy. I tell people all the time, if you go to Western Hunt Expo and you see, Michael Waddell walking by, you can't talk to him because there's 400 people around him. At Pope and Young, he's sitting down having dinner with you. Like, it's just so cool and laid back and fun. And if you're a bow hunter,
some of the most accomplished bow hunters, and it's like you're 100%. Like my first convention as a board member, I was like a fish out of water, because I'm not a very accomplished bow hunter, but like you said, the Jack Frost, Tom Hoffmans, all those guys that have multiple record book entries or just have. They've been on adventures that I'll never get to experience. And it's, as much as they love telling their stories, they love hearing yours too. So it's a great group, and it's a great group to get information and learn from too.
It really is. So again, whether you can make it out for a day, come for the whole show. It is going to be a fun convention, April 9th to 12th. Go to pope-young.org for more information there. But if not, we hope to see you at a tack show, or at a tack shoot, coming up pretty quick, man. That's right around the corner, I guess. The first one is taking place during the convention, in Oklahoma, and then it's hot and heavy throughout there, for the rest of the shows. So come out to a tack event, shoot a new Pruf, and the proof is in the pudding. I'll tell you that. I'm still trying to get Scott to put together a marketing campaign where one of the new Prufs like fall into a bowl of pudding and it splashes everywhere and it's like cool and the Pruf is in the pudding, but he hasn't done it yet. So
that's because I don't want to waste perfectly good pudding.
He said that's why you're not on my marketing team, because you're trying to waste pudding. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week. Again, I would highly encourage you, go to a Shields or somewhere and get your hands on the new Pruf, because they have updated everything that you wanted to see updated from the Arxos. It's a phenomenal site, bulletproof site. I'm super excited to run it. It's what my wife's going to be running. It's what I'm going to be running. It's just a really good site. Now, I keep wanting to leave, but then I keep thinking of different things. This is the perfect site for low pounded shooters, because my wife struggled hardcore with slider sights, getting them past, 45, 50 yards. She's only shooting 45 pounds at 26.5-inch draw. With the Arxos, I got her out to 53. And so I'm making her RVX Plus setup a little faster. And so I'm excited to see her get out to like 60 with the Pruf and being able to shoot further with that diagonal rail. So it's a really good site if you're a low pounded shooter. So make sure and check it out, guys. It's a phenomenal site. There are a lot of great companies making a lot of great bows. Pretty much if you go buy a new bow today, it's going to be a good shooting bow. However, very few bow companies are still single family owned. Even fewer bow companies are Christian owned, which is a very important value to me. And third, very few companies are really looking to push the needle in innovation. That is why I align myself with Prime. Prime, when I made the switch to Prime and I got my hands on this RVX 32 right here, I spent so much time with that bow. I put so many arrows through it. I took it on several different hunts and several different climates and put it just through about anything you can put a bow through. And it performed in every way that I needed it to. It shoots really well. It balances really well. Super high quality. The materials that go into it are great. And then in 2025 comes the form, which just goes to show you that Prime is really looking to move the needle in archery innovation, which is something that's important to me. So guys, that is why I align myself with Prime. I would highly encourage you to go to a Prime dealer and shoot the bows. I would highly encourage you to go to g5prime.com and check out their full lineup. Prime makes a phenomenal bow, but it's also a company that I can feel good about standing behind and supporting. So go check out Prime for your next bow. Thank you so much for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.